Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Rowe, and it's time for final Oscar predictions.
I'm teetering on like dangerous confidence in most categories, but there are a few that I feel like we really have to hash it out on them. A few that I'm very weary of.
There are definitely a lot of categories where I'm like, yeah, it could not go the way it seems, but I don't know how I can predict it to not go the way that I have to predict it.
I'll start off with Best Picture. I think this is Anora, but I would give Conclave like a 25 to a 30% chance that it actually could win.
Conclave has SAG, it has BAFTA, it's gonna win Screenplay, it may very well win Editing, but Anora has PGA, WGA, and DGA. So I just don't know that Conclave is the kind of movie that would upset here. I mean, is Conclave the passion #1 kind of vote movie?
Yeah.
No, it's like a generally well agreed upon movie that maybe people will get behind if they just don't like all the noise of Anora. But I just don't view Conclave as being like a #1 votes kind of movie. I never have. And even though I must admit that it's #2 and it's pretty close, I don't care about BAFTA. Nobody should take BAFTA into account.
Yeah, it's not because it won BAFTA Best Film that I'm saying this. It's because it won.
So one SAG ensemble,
Screenplay and one SAG ensemble.
Look, it had a really good ensemble that you can definitely make the case that like it won because it had like, you know, the best cast.
Yeah.
Anora though, not winning ensemble. Yeah, Anora is not a runaway favorite type of contender.
No. The most awards it's taken at any given awards body is 1.
Well, it won
it's
2
either
at
0
BAFTA.
or 1.
It won 2 at BAFTA.
It won 2 at BAFTA? Oh, it won casting at BAFTA.
But it won DGA and PGA and WGA. So the Guild is an aggregate.
Yeah, the Guild is an aggregate. It did 3. So that's probably, you know.
But I just think Anora, the fact that it's winning director, like usually movies that upset in a bit of a surprise are like the underdog. And I just don't see Conclave as playing this underdog role. If anything, Anora feels like it could be an underdog that upsets like a bigger movie. But Conclave, it would just be so atypical for that to be the kind of movie that surprises at the end of the day.
It wouldn't feel right. I think it is going to be Anora. I think overall Anora just has like the broadest support and like the most people, you know, maybe think it's the best film. But I don't think it's by a long shot. And really what I'm wondering is, even though I feel safe predicting Anora in Best Film, Best Picture, I wonder how many Oscars is this going to win? I think it's going to win 3 or 4. I really don't think The Brutalist is competitive at this point. I mean, losing BAFTA Best Film was like not great for it.
No.
Even though BAFTA Best Film doesn't really feel like it matters. The fact that it didn't win any SAG.
Brutalist didn't win any SAG awards, doesn't have any major Guild wins, didn't even win any.
No major Guild wins. There's
absolutely not. Absolutely no major Guild wins. Now Conclave, it won BAFTA partly because it's British and it's the kind of thing that they'd like. And honestly, winning BAFTA is almost a negative precursor. It almost is just a tradition at this point where if you're not sweeping all the way through, BAFTA will split with the Oscar. That's my prediction is Anora, not having a hard time about it. If it was Conclave, I'd be pretty damn surprised.
Yeah. It wouldn't feel right either. It just feels like Anora's going to take it. But, you know, we are still reeling a little bit from the fact that Anora won no SAG awards. Like, it is not a runaway favorite.
It's happened before.
So what else? I mean, we got director. This is between Brady Corbet and Sean Baker, and there's no two ways around it. Like, those are the only people who have a chance of winning.
I mean, Brady Corbet, he won the Golden Globe and the BAFTA, but he didn't even win Critics' Choice, which is just weird. And to John Chu, it's just weird.
Yeah.
Still gives me nightmares.
The DGA loss is by far the biggest factor here, and the DGA going to Sean Baker, not only did that show strength for Anora that we didn't think existed at the time, but that award is not going to go nowhere. You are not going to win DGA and then not take the Oscar, like, in a year when you're taking Best Picture, okay? So if Anora didn't win the directing prize at Oscar, I'd be like, holy shit, is that going to lose Best Picture? Or I wouldn't really know what to think. It just wouldn't make sense.
Look, it's Sean Baker's year and his time.
Yeah.
He won the Palm. He's got the most acclaimed movie of the year. It's probably winning Best Picture.
Yeah.
That's why he's going along with it, because the whole Anora thing is a celebration of a filmmaker.
Yeah.
All right?
And he's established himself as an auteur.
That's why he's
We understand his vision, his style, and we're here in support of it. I think Brady Corbet does take the crown for maybe the most challenging film to make. Perhaps it's the most impressive film to make. But, you know, I look at the case of Bong Joon-ho prevailing over Sam Mendes for 1917. I think 1917 was maybe a more difficult, challenging film to make, but ultimately they just really liked Parasite and they wanted to award the filmmaker behind it. I guess we can move on. Should we move on to the screenplay categories? It kind of feels right to discuss like Anora's win
If it feels right, then you have to go with what you feel.
Well, okay, original screenplay is Anora winning here. Now, this has been another strange category where we expected Anora to sweep even without a Best Picture win, since it won the Palme d'Or it can about. And it has not swept in screenplay. It really hasn't. Now, what has happened in screenplay has been strange. So, The Substance won Critics' Choice, made people think, oh, well, if that wins the BAFTA, like, maybe I'll predict that. And if it did win the BAFTA, I'd also predict it to win. Okay, well, what happened at BAFTA? A Real Pain won. And what happened at WGA was A Real Pain and Anora faced off, and Anora won at WGA. So it's kind of weird. And BAFTA screenplay I do take stock in. So that's why if they went with The Substance, you would say, okay, well, that wasn't at WGA. And like everywhere they faced off, it's won. But I don't think The Substance is winning. And A Real Pain's not in Best Film, but that didn't stop it.
Why are we having so much trouble just saying it's Anora?
Well, it didn't look. Buddy, A Real Pain won and it didn't stop it.
Hey, Anora didn't win Best Film at BAFTA. I know that it was weird that A Real Pain won BAFTA, but why does that have to repeat? Why can't we just say, oh, that's weird? WGA went with Anora over A Real Pain, okay? WGA is more important. BAFTA can do weird things sometimes. I don't understand why they did that. It does make me scared about the Oscar, but Anora is the most well-liked movie. Yeah. Screenplay is the category that it made, that we all thought it was going to sweep from the beginning of the year. And even though it's at a bumpy road, the fact that it's landing at winning Best Picture, it's going to keep the Screenplay award.
No, I think I'm going to predict it here. I just wanted to say I think there's a little bit of tension in this category with A Real Pain.
When Everything Everywhere won Best Picture, there was a little bit of tension with Banshees.
Sure. I just wonder why Anora hasn't swept Screenplay. That's what I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why are people like, nah, know the screenplay, even when they like it in other categories?
Well, those places didn't give it Best Director either. No, the only place that gave it Best Director is the Guilds. And they also gave it screenplay. I'm fine with it.
I agree.
I know that it could be A Real Pain. I don't think it's going to be The Substance. I don't think they like that enough. But I'm not actually that worried that it's not going to be Anora. I think that's what we're getting.
Also, if you're looking for, us to talk a lot about the anonymous ballots, like I actually don't think it's very appropriate to bring that into the conversation, just because anonymous ballots don't really help us determine who's going to win in these categories, right?
And sometimes they mislead.
Yeah, sometimes they mislead. Like, I remember the year that Penelope Cruz was nominated and she didn't get nominated anywhere else. People were freaking out, like how they're freaking out about Fernando Torres potentially winning. And Penelope Cruz was #1 on the anonymous ballots.
By a lot.
By a lot. And Jessica Chastain didn't win the BAFTA. She wasn't even nominated. So people were like, oh, maybe she's not strong, but Jessica Chastain ended up winning. So, yeah, they can throw red herrings. They shouldn't be changing your prediction.
No.
They should just be like a point of curiosity. Maybe if you're like really on the fence in a certain category, you like reference them, but it's not going to get you that far.
What is just more likely? The Best Picture winner wins, or a movie that's not nominated?
Here's why, here's why stepping back from the screenplay category, I look at Anora not being a sweeper and then going to the Academy Awards and being like, maybe it just doesn't take both screenplay and director.
Why not?
Maybe it just doesn't, because it just has been performing just strangely.
It's going to be fine.
Okay.
We're going to be fine.
All right. Well, adapted screenplay, we're definitely going to have Conclave.
It's Conclave. There's no question.
Conclave is #2 for Best Picture, okay? It's absolutely winning this category, and it just makes sense on the level of, like, what was the best crafted screenplay? What's, like, a really memorable script? I'm kind of hanging on every line when I watch Conclave, because, the dialogue is so layered and interesting. So that's like runaway the favorite. We don't even need to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, Nickel Boys won WGA.
Where Conclave wasn't competitive.
Right. So yeah, we're done. I mean, we all know that Conclave would have beat that.
Yeah. Nickel Boys is probably the runner-up. But I don't think it's gonna be. We could take a break from an Anora category and talk about Best Actor. The summary is Brody has taken everything and performed really well, and The Brutalist has also performed pretty well everywhere in general.
Well, with wins, it's a little debatable.
You're right.
But the fact that he is winning everywhere, I guess, except for SAG. That's pretty great.
And I also think The Brutalist is debatably like a top 3 film in Best Picture.
Yeah. I mean, with the BAFTA haul, you would say so.
So that's what, and the only place he lost was SAG, right? And SAG didn't understand The Brutalist. They didn't get it, or they didn't like it. You know, they didn't nominate it either of the supporting performances, and they ultimately went with Timothée Chalamet because they like to Complete Unknown better. I just don't think it's going to repeat.
The Oscars like The Brutalist a lot with the nominations, getting Felicity Jones, like, they don't have a problem with the movie. Some of the anonymous ballots will be like, oh, they like, people will be dissing on The Brutalist, but look, Adrian Brody, even on those, Adrian Brody is winning. I think it's not that hard. I think BAFTA is a really good indicator. He has a great comeback narrative as well. Timmy can wait. I mean, they waited a while for DiCaprio. It was like the internet screaming about how they need an Oscar, and then they don't really care. I think Adrian Brody's also like, that is the best performance in the category, perhaps, maybe other than Coleman Domingo too. Yeah. But I think it's on another level of like pristine, like yummy acting than even Timothée Chalamet, who's great in the movie. But you know, I understand why this season's going Brody's way, and
SAG's very impressive. This is going with Adrian Brody. Like, it's not that close. I really don't think it's that close. The campaign behind Chalamet hasn't been like, oh, this is his time, guys. Like, we have to give it to him. That's going to be needed to win him an Oscar. Or he's got to be, like, in a Best Picture winning film, or just closer to Best Picture. So, this one's Adrian Brody. Next, we can talk about Best Actress. This is maybe the most fucked category of all, actually. I've been speaking confidently that I think Mikey Madison will take this, and my reasoning is BAFTA matters more than SAG, and Mikey Madison's in the Best Picture winner, okay? Now, the problem here is that Honora didn't sweep, and having 4 major wins feels like a really big haul, and her competition is not scrambled very much. Like, Demi Moore has won every major televised precursor. Lily Gladstone, you know, versus Emma Stone. Emma Stone at least won the Golden Globe.
Emma Stone
and Lily Gladstone was snubbed for the BAFTA nomination.
Emma Stone also won the Critics' Choice. She won more awards.
And the Critics' Choice. You know, when you compare it to other years where, like, the BAFTA was the deciding factor, even, like, Frances McDormand in Nomadland, she was the only one nominated for the BAFTA.
So it seemed like BAFTA wasn't even going to be relevant that year, and yet she still won it.
The other awards bodies were splitting. SAG and Critics' Choice went different directions.
I'll just say,
even Golden Globe did.
BAFTA's track record in close years is insane. Sure, Michelle Yeoh won the SAG and they won the Oscar. You know, Everything Everywhere was winning Best Picture, like, by a lot.
Yeah.
And BAFTA didn't care about that movie that much. So that was a year where it seemed like the deciding factor was more that Everything Everywhere was just stronger. But for Mikey Madison to win just BAFTA, she's not even British. They didn't even give Honora Best Picture. Like, I can't think of a reason that happened other than it's a sign she's winning the Oscar. Like, you don't just win the BAFTA and go nowhere unless you're British. Or, you know, maybe Emmanuel Riva in a more... it was also a European film, too. Like, doesn't really happen. And in close races, BAFTA calls it. Sometimes even when you're British, like Olivia Colman or Anthony Hopkins winning. We know SAG likes narratives, so it was less surprising that they went with Demi Moore. I mean, Demi Moore, you know, you can really make the argument. She's got a lot of friends in Hollywood. The movie's winning makeup, so it's got a pairing to it. She's got an amazing narrative. Mikey Madison would probably win an Oscar later on in her life if she doesn't win this year. And many people might say, we'll just wait for her time. But just those things combined, winning BAFTA, Best Picture winner at Oscar, I think I have to go with Mikey Madison. But it's close AF, and the stats don't have to work out the way that I think that they make sense. Perhaps BAFTA's like lone and they're going rogue and it doesn't make any sense.
I saw somebody comparing this race to the year where Chiwetel Ejiofor was nominated and won the BAFTA for 12 Years a Slave, which was winning Best Picture. And Matthew McConaughey actually took the Oscar. He also took SAG. He also took Critics' Choice.
Wasn't McConaughey not nominated? Matthew McConaughey was not nominated that year. Dallas Buyers Club had like a thing where it just wasn't at BAFTA.
But I guess the point was that the career narrative is so strong that, of course, it's going to be in Demi Moore's favor. You know, again, I would just caution people that the narrative doesn't always prevail.
I would say more often than not.
If Demi Moore won, I don't know how I would like reconcile it with everything that we've just said, because really, like, if you do like a stats thing about this, it does feel like there are enough examples where you can just make them fit Mikey Madison much more easily than you can make them fit Demi Moore if you really care about like what wins BAFTA and like whether it correlates to your Best Picture win. But if you don't care about those things, like, or if you just see this as more of like a fluid race, then I don't know how you I don't know what you really point to justify Demi Moore.
Well, Demi Moore has 3 precursors, and Mikey Madison only has the BAFTA.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I would see it more as like, hey, Honora wasn't front-running that hard.
Well, that's true. And also Oppenheimer, like, those are 3 movies where the leads went along, and people are pointing to those and saying, well, now what happens is, you know, the lead of the movie wins with their film. But that didn't happen plenty of times, and Michael Keaton in Birdman is a good example. I would say Brendan Fraser in The Whale losing to Austin Butler is a bit of a counterexample, because Brendan Fraser was going fully off the narrative. The Whale was less liked than Elvis, and Austin Butler, like Mikey Madison, is kind of the rising star. But Elvis wasn't. It was maybe not even top 5 for Best Picture, too.
Well, and The Whale was definitely, it was not even nominated.
Right, but Honora's number 1. I also think that Demi Moore, like, when I saw the movie, I was like, that's not going to win an Oscar. I didn't even think she'd get nominated, but I just thought that the performance was very unconventionally awards. Like, there are a couple scenes, like the mirror scene and you know, where she's pretty showy, but she is buried underneath makeup and screaming for like the last 30 minutes of the movie.
Listen, that hasn't mattered to people.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that her narrative is really what's propelling her to like win.
You're saying something subjective. Like, some people genuinely disagree with that. They think that Demi Moore is the best performance.
Yeah, I know some people think that, and it makes sense that some people think that, but the fact that she's winning and she's getting all the votes is a lot because people like her story. I think when that is the factor that's pushing somebody over the edge to win, the Oscars will take that away. And they'll say, no thanks. Like Glenn Close in The Wife, probably a great performance. The main reason she was winning precursors is because she had never won before.
Yeah, I guess I would just caveat it and say that we don't know that that's like we know it's a factor, but we don't know that that's exactly how people are thinking about it. We don't know that people are like, oh, well, I know Mikey Madison was the best, but I want Demi Moore. Like, we don't know people are saying that.
I think a lot of people think that. I mean, what other evidence is there than that the critics switched who they were going to because they saw that Demi Moore won the Golden Globe, and before they were going to go for Mikey Madison.
I think it's the factor that made her sweep up till the BAFTA.
Of course.
I agree that is like the main thing. And again, I don't think it's like, oh, her performance wasn't good enough. I think that's an unusual performance to be winning awards. And that's the explanation that I would give as to why it was winning.
Anthony Hopkins was the best performance of his year. All right. I know a lot of people think Riz Ahmed too. Chadwick Boseman was excellent in Ma Rainey.
Yeah.
But I think his posthumous narrative pushed him over the edge to actually start winning precursors. Maybe he would have won a few. But, you know, the Oscars and BAFTA, they went with the performance that was just like... It was also in the movie they liked better, too.
I mean, I would say I do agree with this overall. But I also feel like me thinking Mikey Madison is that performance is not necessarily something people will agree on.
I don't think everybody has to agree on it.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. Now, Fernanda Torres... I do think she could surprise.
Yep.
I'd give it maybe 20%
I had a
or
dream
more.
that Mikey Madison was reading off who is the winner of Best Actress. And
why would Mikey Madison?
I don't know why. But I was like, oh, she's going to say Mikey Madison, and then she's going to like accept the award. And then she looked really surprised. So I thought she won. And then she said Fernanda Torres. And I was like... And I was just looking around, and like Fernanda Torres is like on the fucking like background screen, and she won. So I don't know if my dream will come true.
I mean, look, Fernanda Torres, she pulled that movie into Best Picture. Now that everybody has seen I'm Still Here, due to it being in the lineup, I think she'll have a lot of support.
Yeah, I think she's absolutely going to get some votes, like a significant portion of votes will be going to Fernanda Torres. Her performance has been moving a lot of people, and many think it is like the standout best performance of the year. I absolutely believe that is true, but I feel that if her campaign started earlier in the season and she was able to take another prize or get nominated for BAFTA, maybe even take the BAFTA award, we'd be in a different situation. And it's not really
she does
about
have Golden Globe, but she was competing with nobody.
Yeah.
Again, this is like the Penelope Cruz scenario where people are like, well, she hasn't gone up against anybody before, so we don't know how she'll play. And it's like, well, I mean, the fact that she's not nominated everywhere is not a sign of strength. I agree that it's an interesting situation because the Oscars were all exposed to this movie in a way that the nominating bodies of like BAFTA and others probably weren't.
And it would be one thing if she just got the nomination without her film being in Best Picture. And maybe people could just be like, oh, maybe I'll get around to I'm Still Here, but like it's not in best film, so does it really like... But now that it's in best film, it's like you have to see that. If you're an Oscar voter, you have no excuse whatsoever. I know some of them are lazy about movies, and a lot of them have just seen it. A lot of them saw it after the nominations happened. People feel passionately about that film. Yes, this is possible, but I don't think I can go ahead and predict it, especially when the winners that are circulating people's minds are primarily, I think, Demi Moore and Mikey Madison's performances. And I think it's a timing issue where if I'm Still Here came out earlier, if she was able to get nominated everywhere, which she could have been based on the strength of the movie alone, then we'd be in a different situation. But that's not the situation we're in.
Well, also, why can't it just be that she's like the Sandra Hüller nominee and she's like number 3 or whatever, and like I don't know totally why possible. It has to be like, oh, because she's there, she's number 1. I mean, I will say, on the anonymous ballots, these 3 are pretty close. All 3 of them are getting a lot of votes, and so in a way, Fernanda Torres is factoring into this race and is taking away votes from Mikey Madison and Demi Moore, which is a factor that we haven't seen play out yet.
Yeah, it could scramble it a little bit.
My thing is, I think any theory that she's pulling like all the votes from Mikey Madison or she's pulling all the votes from Demi Moore probably falls on its face. I guarantee if there was a ranked ballot, you would find out that it's like pretty 50-50 or proportional as to who's Fernanda Torres voters number 2 is, and I don't think we should factor that in.
If I were to speculate, though, I think you'd have a stronger argument saying she's pulling votes from Mikey Madison.
Why?
And the reason is, if you want to vote for a career, you're going to vote for Demi Moore, and that's going to be that. It doesn't matter to you who the best performance is when you're like locked into this narrative that, oh, it's her time to get something. People who don't think about it as like, this is my favorite performance, and they're just like, I want to see an Oscar for this person I really like, they're probably going to go for Demi Moore. But for the people who are like, Mikey Madison doesn't have that career behind her, so people do have to think about it as like, I think that's my favorite performance, and I love Honora.
I mean, you could also make the other argument where you say that Mikey Madison's getting all the Honora votes for people who love the movie and feel like they have to bring her along. Or you could make an argument that, one of the people who are voting for like the more seasoned actress versus like the newcomer. Like you can make a bunch of cases.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately you shouldn't consider it.
Yeah.
Because it's like how people have all these imaginations about what the preferential ballot will benefit and what it won't. And at the end of the day, a movie like Honora, which has a lot of number 1s, is also number 2 and 3 on a lot of ballots. Like, go figure, I
think you're allowed to do it, but you're not that well supported. Like, this would be, the most shocking Oscar win in an acting category that I can think of, period.
Yeah.
Period. Like, I've never witnessed it.
But it also has interesting factors that don't go into most races. So that's fair to point out.
That's why people's imaginations start going, and they get confused between Demi Moore and Mikey Madison, and they feel like, oh, well, I'm just going to go with like the third option because I don't really know what to do. It's just a feeling. It's not really grounded, but it's not possible to ground. Like, we can't falsify it.
So Mikey Madison is the prediction from both of us. It's something we have to do.
Didn't you like freak out recently about Demi Moore? Like, what was that all about? You were like, "Oh, I actually think it's not that close. It's actually close."
No, because you were really confident about it, and I was like, it could just go that way, and it would just
of course.
Like, oh, it's Demi Moore, I guess.
Oh, of course, I definitely
could just happen.
I definitely think it's possible.
Let's continue to supporting actor and supporting actress. We don't even need to have discussions here.
Yeah,
Kieran Culkin's winning supporting actor.
Correct.
He has swept.
Correct.
When you win all the awards, you do not lose.
Correct.
Would be silly to predict anybody else. Zoe Saldana in supporting actress would be silly to predict anybody else.
Yeah.
And yet I've seen a couple trying it. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Do you like being wrong?
The Oscars are hard to predict sometimes in some categories, but then they're really, really easy and predictable in many others. Like, year after year, I remember like watching the Oscars and being like, okay, this is pretty normal. Like, okay, well, we know this award's here, and it goes like, it's so rare for a race that feels locked up to go in another direction.
Yes,
like, suddenly.
never ever happens, really.
It never really happens. Like, I remember I was extremely shocked that Ex Machina won the visual effects award, but we weren't sure whether it was going to be Star Wars or Mad Max.
And The Revenant even was.
Oh, and so
there was competition there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the most shocking, like, and I think the year of La La Land in general, we were very shocked about a lot of the craft categories going in like crazy directions. But I think even that most of those were like supported by guilds and stuff, and they weren't. But
when you're clean sweeping, you don't lose. Just does not happen.
The last couple of years, I look at, you know, what won the Oscars, and usually it's the one or it's the two. It's like I never comes up from like the third or the fourth. It really, really rarely does. It's usually between two contenders and no more, no less. And like you can't even, when you can't find the second one, when you're just like, where would the second contender be even? Like it's just going to go that way.
You're gonna make stuff up. You're gonna make up that like Rossellini or like Ariana Grande is. No.
You're like hallucinating stuff, and it's like fun to do that, but it just. Yeah. I've seen people like just switch all their predictions around, and like it never happens. It's kind of like thinking you're like a prophet somehow. You're just getting too into your own head about it. Like just go with the where the evidence leads you. Well, if there's going to be an upset on that level, you're not going to call it. Like you're just not. Where do we go from here? You want to do best editing? This one's actually crazy.
Editing, yeah. So Challengers was the rightful winner at Critics' Choice. The BAFTA went to Conclave, and here we are. Anora's winning Best Picture. It is nominated for editing. Some believe that this is enough to make it win. I say that you should note that you were predicting Parasite to win in 2019, and you were wrong. Everything Everywhere and Oppenheimer. Sure, the past two winners. Yeah. They won Best Editing. Were they also the most insane feats of editing of their year? Yeah, they were. Is Anora an insane, like, editing movie? Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not, it's not.
It doesn't stand out in terms of the editing alone, and you can't really give me an example where a film won this category, but the rationale was because it was like the best film of the year.
Maybe that used to happen a lot.
I think it used to happen more, but like in the last 10 years
or something. But yeah, even Argo is like, that was a freaking thriller, dude.
Like Oppenheimer and Everything Everywhere probably would have won editing if they didn't win best film.
Crash also won editing, but that was
your
like
only reasoning,
montage movie.
Yeah, if it's your only reasoning that it's winning best film, the answer is no. It's not happening.
Also, Anora, the one thing that everyone seems to agree on that's a flaw is that it's a little long in spots.
Yeah.
Seems like everybody thinks that. I mean,
I don't think we're giving Sean Baker like 4 Oscars either. And
I also don't think that
Anora is not a sweeper. So it's not going to like pick up every single
it hasn't won editing awards yet. I don't see a reason people are like, oh, I need to give Sean Baker an Oscar in editing. It's like, no, you don't. There's definitely a good case for Conclave. It won BAFTA Best Film. And so the editing win there is maybe a little bit diluted where it's like, well, they love the movie. Like, I get that.
Yeah.
But the other contenders don't even have like BAFTA nominations, many of them.
Right.
I mean, the only one that seemed like it could do it early on was Emilia Perez, just for having the most editing.
And I think if that was going to win, the BAFTA would have done it.
Yeah, and that movie, I don't think they're going to be voting for that movie outside of Saldana and Song and maybe something else. That's not happening anymore. I think there's a case for Wicked, but the fact that Wicked doesn't have other editing nominations and that Conclave won BAFTA, like, again, I'm not gonna like hallucinate and dream up these things to happen. Although I can make a good case for Wicked. It has a sound nomination. It has split screen and, you know, what is this feeling? And sometimes it has very fast editing. It's like, you know, to the music. They like when there's a lot of music
also
involved.
Nominated it in a lot of crafts categories. Yes. The Oscars overrepresented Wicked compared to other places.
It's also not a movie that people generally think is too long. Like people, it's entertaining, which some people might be thinking about.
Like, if you're just trying to perceive like, oh, that one has a lot of editing. Like Wicked is a big blockbustery film. It being a musical too, like all like timing edits to music is just like a classic reason to give something editing.
I think about the ending scene where they're weaving in and out of the song, and like there's a lot of pacing that I think goes into that big crescendo of an ending. So I think there's definitely a case for Wicked.
Yeah.
But just the fact that Conclave has BAFTA, and also I feel like Conclave is kind of the common sense choice here in a way. Like Conclave is a very tight, carefully done movie. It has plenty of montages with the voting sequences, and it's very rhythmic with the score. It's just like a carefully edited movie, and I think it should win out of all the nominees here. I would be voting for it because I think on the second viewing I was like, this is a pretty perfectly edited film.
Usually this is not how they think about this category,
but it is kind of a thriller.
I'll just point out that the reason this is a scrambled ass category is because usually editing is like, oh well, what movie has, you know, action, or, you know, is a war film, or has racing, and
or, you know, is winning sound.
Yeah, and we don't have that. Like Dune Part 2 would have been a perfect editing win here, but didn't fucking get nominated. You know, we're just kind of left with a category that doesn't really make sense. And I think if Conclave wins, like, or I think whatever wins won't have like the majority of votes by any means.
I think Conclave's just the least weird thing that could happen. Even Wicked being like winning weird. Editing is weird. I mean, I will say it does often go to like bigger budget films too. Yeah. One of the two things, most editing or a sound win. I think most editing is maybe Emilia Perez, and none of them has a sound win, but Wicked has a sound nomination. Mm-hmm. But Conclave is rhythmic and tense and tight and entertaining throughout the runtime. I think
honestly, like, regardless of the merit, you just have to be like, all right, well, it won the BAFTA, and that's the best thing you're going to get here because you have so little to go off of. BAFTAs are very accurate when it comes to craft categories, and you're gonna see me go down the line pretty much with BAFTA here. Like in terms of crafts, like I am going straight forward with the BAFTAs in, I think, all of these tech categories that I can. Every tech category that they've given me, I will be going with BAFTA. And that strategy works. It actually works really well.
Most of the time.
I don't have a reason to think this year is gonna not work. I think it's gonna work really well this year.
The La La Land year did not go. I'll say that. There are some years where it doesn't go. The All Quiet year was kind of weird.
But the All Quiet year was like, that was a big wrench.
They were all messed up.
I got 15 nominations.
They were all messed up. Yeah. You know, you're thinking of the Coda year and last year, like that was lockstep.
Yeah. I have like a sense that it could be Wicked, but it feels like I'm dreaming it up too much.
It's too weird.
Yeah.
Conclave's the most normal editing winner here.
Well, Wicked's more normal in the sense that it's like a big blockbuster.
No, but when you think of which movie do you think of editing like faster? Which one is like the quicker association in your mind? Like, I've always thought that Conclave was like
editing. It's such a weird criteria. Like I can't even.
No, it's not.
I don't think of Conclave that way necessarily.
I think Conclave equals editing.
Okay, that's
I kind of think of it that way.
You think that way. I don't think most people think that way.
I know. Like the first time I watched the movie, I was like, easily getting nominated for editing. I didn't think that about Wicked. I didn't necessarily think about The Brutalist.
Well, yeah, we definitely didn't think Wicked was.
And I didn't necessarily think about Anora. Like those are movies that I think are mainly in here because they're in Best Picture. Cinematography. We gotta go Brutalist, right? So Brutalist did not take ASC, but ASC, they are sometimes rogue and they care who does it because they pay attention to who the cinematographer is and things that most people don't.
Yeah, ASC went with Maria, BSC went with The Brutalist, and BAFTA went with The Brutalist. So it's looking like The Brutalist from a precursor perspective.
And Critics' Choice went with Nosferatu. So Brutalist isn't cleaning up by any means, but one of these contenders that has won something is in Best Picture, and it's The Brutalist. The Brutalist has been advertising the VistaVision. Yeah. It's a grand scope film.
It makes sense that Critics' Choice went with Nosferatu, by the way. Like, I think I predicted it.
I know.
And it wasn't, like, so surprising. I mean, critics were giving that one the most wins. But The Brutalist, like you're saying, has the grandest spectacle.
Just the fact that they were advertising, like, how it's made and, like, oh, you should see this in, like, 70 millimeter if you can. Yeah. That kind of thing. Like, I think that's a big deal.
It just looks fucking amazing. Like, it's an amazingly assembled film. The cinematography is great.
I mean, the opening shot.
May think of, the opening shot, or they'll think of the quarry scene.
Nosferatu looks great. I think that's a potential spoiler, but again, there's just not enough evidence for it.
Yeah, like The Brutalist is clearly a stronger film in general. So this is The Brutalist.
Production design, costumes, it's Wicked.
It's Wicked.
These are sweepers, once again.
Yeah. If The Brutalist was going to win, it would have won BAFTA. If The Brutalist was going to win production design.
If anything else was going to win, it would have won something.
And The Brutalist lost the Art Director Guild to Conclave, I think
To a Complete Unknown.
To a Complete Unknown. Yeah, that's where you're like, you have no support to say that it's going to be The Brutalist.
The guilds fucking hated The Brutalist.
That's, yeah.
They hated it. It didn't win a thing.
There's no way it's going to win production design here.
No. Wicked is, 9 Million Tulips, the rotating clock.
Yeah.
Like, it's done. The big train that actually rolls around.
Everything.
Like, so many stories.
No, Wicked deserves it. Wicked deserves that. It also deserves costumes. It is just like a fucking feast for the eyes. And so, yes, Wicked will win production design and costumes, and that is probably all that it will win at the Oscars.
Yeah, I think it could sneak in an editing or sound win, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be costumes.
And costumes has no competition. Costumes is absolutely Wicked. Production design's like 95% Wicked. Costumes is like 99.
With the 1% being Nosferatu?
Yeah, maybe no. I don't know. Just too much of a wild card. Best score is also The Brutalist, and this one to me, like, it's been a long time coming. It's obviously, if you just listen to the scores alone, it makes the most sense. The Brutalist makes the most sense from like a raw fucking like impression perspective. Like, what's your impression of that score, and like how impressive is it? The film is just glazed in that score, beautifully showcased in the overture and right before the intermission, just throughout. It makes so much sense, and the only film that has been challenging it is Challengers, which also isn't here. So like, what else are you gonna do? No. I mean, some people think that Conclave would have won the BAFTA.
Conclave's not winning score.
No, Conclave would have won the BAFTA. The Brutalist was like fucking insane. Like it was
insane.
It made me like trip. You know, they used like a prepared piano to like get some of those like donk sounds.
Yeah, it was sick.
Yeah, it was sick.
I mean, it won score in the first 5 minutes of the film. It also won cinematography in the first 5 minutes of the movie. So,
exactly.
You know, for shout out to everybody who didn't finish the movie, you're still voting for it.
I also think it won Best Actor in the first 5 minutes of the movie, almost. Maybe like the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And Wicked won Best Production Design and Costumes in the first 5 minutes of the movie as well.
Yep. So there you go. Those I think I would just be very, very surprised if these texts were different. Now,
no, makeup.
Makeup
is actually the most locked category. Tied with the costumes.
No, I would
stuff.
give Wicked like a 3 to 5% chance.
Nope, everyone loves the substance. They get it. They want it. And
no, I know.
No one disagrees.
It's going to be the substance, and this is, you know, this is why we're here. This is why the movie's nominated.
Yeah.
It was like, well, we have to give it makeup. We may as well give it Best Actress. We may as well give it Best Picture.
Yeah.
Visual effects is Dune.
That is Dune.
No reason to doubt this.
Yeah. Have they even like some people think, oh, Planet of the Apes is perhaps competitive. Well,
who thinks that? VES went with all the Apes movies. That's why it won. BAFTA is the better indicator in this category.
Yes.
A movie being in Best Picture is much more important.
The Apes movies have won VES every time they, like, all the modern iterations of them.
They haven't even
and then they've lost BAFTA and the Oscar every time as well.
Yes, every time.
Every time.
All of them.
There's no competition. It's going to be Dune. It's the no-brainer pick.
Just like Way of Water, this is a category where it doesn't matter if it's a sequel.
Have they even seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes? Why would they even watch that? It's not an Oscar movie.
In sound, do they care that Dune already won? And are they going to say, oh, we're awarding the same work again?
So sound is weird because it doesn't make sense that Dune missed editing. So it feels like it should have an editing nomination or a win to back up a sound win. But at the same time, BAFTA didn't give it editing, and they gave it sound. What else are you gonna do? Dune also won MPSE, right?
I know what else you'll do. Dune won MPSE, Complete Unknown won Cinema Audio Society.
If we had a sound mixing category, I would not predict Dune.
I would predict a Complete Unknown.
I would as well. Or I'd say, like, you know, maybe it's Wicked. But
it's
the fact that we just have sound as a flat category now, I'd predict Dune. And I also think, you know, if we had a sound editing category, I think that would also
I'll tell you something scary.
All right.
The anonymous ballots in this category gave me a bit of a spook.
Oh, really?
Because Dune is only out front by like 1. Wow. And A Complete Unknown is number 2.
Wow.
And I'm a little scared about this.
I actually think A Complete Unknown would be like a totally worthy winner.
That's the thing. It wouldn't even be a bad winner.
No.
But my question is this. We have 3 movies in this category. I don't really know why you'd vote for Emilia Perez. So let's just say that even if it's just Wicked and Complete Unknown, like, what are you voting for? Do you think that Complete Unknown is like the live concert thing, and then Wicked, would you vote, you know,
they
the
both
musical
have
thing?
Live singing,
live stuff.
Music.
And then Dune is the movie that like shook everybody in the theater back in March.
Sounds
but
like,
everybody
Dune sounds like this.
But they don't remember being in the theater.
They don't remember it, but it's kind of like visual effects.
They have short-term memory loss, and they don't remember how hard they shook. They don't remember that they got an accidental orgasm from the chair while they were watching Dune in the theater in March. They don't remember that. So I actually am very scared about A Complete Unknown. Let me just tell you that I'm very scared. And
I wasn't about to tell you that this is a runaway category where Dune wins, period, full stop. And also, Lord of the Unknown was not nominated at BAFTA for sound. It didn't make sense, but it wasn't there. So it couldn't have possibly won over Dune.
I think Dune probably would have won the BAFTA either way. That's my feeling. BAFTA going for Dune, though, you might have to. You might have to go along with it, but I am scared about A Complete Unknown. Because I think that's the challenge.
I think the argument is, you know, amnesia, right? Like, they just saw A Complete Unknown. That came out really late. And who knows if they remember Dune. They clearly have forgotten.
I also think this is really the first year since the sound category merged that I think we would have seen a definitive split. You know, maybe Top Gun and All Quiet would have split. We don't know like which direction.
Well, Oppenheimer and Zone of Interest would have split. Probably.
Oh, that's true. They might
would Zone of Interest take both.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
It would probably get.
I think we're still figuring this out because we haven't had a musical show up here yet. In 2012, everyone knew that Les Mis was winning sound mixing and not sound editing. If those categories were together, would Les Mis have just won sound, or would it have gone to Zero Dark 30 or Skyfall? Nobody knows.
It would have been like probably Zero Dark 30 or Skyfall.
I don't know. I mean, Les Mis did win the BAFTA for sound. So they actually went towards mixing that time. But that was a clearer race, too. That's the thing about this category that we don't quite know yet. Even still.
Yeah, so you might be like, oh, well, do they lean towards sound mixing or sound editing? I would say they probably lean towards sound editing because it's the more obvious in-your-face thing. Sound editing is like gunshots, car chases. It's like the actual sounds that are recorded.
I mean, all I can say is that BAFTA's been pretty good in this category. Zone of Interest won.
Yeah.
All Quiet didn't, but they went bananas for it. Dune, Sound of Metal, 1917, Bohemian Rhapsody, Dunkirk, even Arrival. The last time BAFTA didn't carry over, aside from All Quiet, is The Revenant.
Yeah, I think, again, like, BAFTA's probably just going to carry over.
Yeah, so, yeah, there you go. I mean, look.
And if it didn't, then we'd probably say, well, it was a fluke that A Complete Unknown wasn't nominated at BAFTA, and maybe it would have won it there if it was nominated.
I feel like Dune is the louder movie. Dune's the exclamation point in the sound category. So I'm just scared because I don't really know how well it can do as a sequel. And I don't know if they'll feel like we did that already. Maybe even with Oppenheimer, they were like, oh, well, we give Nolan's movies sound all the time. And Zone of Interest was something they haven't seen before.
Right, that's
I guess Complete Unknown isn't like unprecedented sound work. Also, Walk the Line I don't think won either. It actually did win the BAFTA, though. I don't know why Complete Unknown wasn't nominated at BAFTA. But yeah, I'm going to go with Dune, but this is actually a scary one for me. Scary. Original song. Go with El Mal here. I understand that, like, a lot of people don't love the songs from this movie. I understand that Emilia Perez went like this. But what else? Like, honestly, this won the Golden Globe and the Critics' Choice. There's no reason to doubt when that happens. And I don't think that there's enough people who are getting behind Diane Warren just to give it to Diane Warren.
No.
I'm sure there are some Diane Warren votes. But look, the Oscars, they still like Emilia Perez, okay?
Yeah.
And they will default to this.
I think people don't think that hard about this category. And they're just like, that song, yeah, sure, because Emilia Perez is going to win this. Emilia Perez just being represented here is almost like, yeah, of course it's going to win. One of its songs is going to win, and that's the one that's been winning. Not that hard to do. I mean, if there's an upset, like, I'll just be like, well, how could I have determined that? How could I have called that?
I mean, even Like a Bird from Sing Sing, I've seen some people kind of, on the anonymous ballots, throwing their vote to it here just because they wish it was nominated. But it didn't get nominated. There's not enough support for it, I don't think.
Yeah.
And then we'll go to International Feature. Very fun because Emilia Perez and I'm Still Here are both facing off in this category. One has 13 nominations, one has 3. The answer may seem obvious based on that, but I don't think it is. I'm Still Here is something that people saw late. Yeah. And they really, really liked it when they saw it, I think.
It got so much passion that it somehow entered the top 10 for Best Picture. And even at that point, I think it's possible that not even the majority of the Academy had seen it.
Oh yeah,
so it got
like number
so
one
much
votes.
number one votes from like a small, amount of people. I think that's how it must have gotten in.
Oh, I think that if they held the nominations again now, it would easily be in screenplay, might be in director, could be in more categories. Yeah. I think it's continuing to surge. It's still on the up and up, and Emilia Perez is going like this. And then the other movies are going like this. And what happens when you make this formation is one will eventually surclipse the other. And I think that has happened. People know that Zoe Saldana is winning and that Emilia Perez will have a big win. But people might feel like this category is a really fun way to throw their support behind I'm Still Here. It feels better. Even if you thought the movies were nearly as good, I think it would still feel more fun to have this be I'm Still Here's category that it wins. And also just how much that movie represents Brazil versus Emilia Perez, the Oscar goes to France, whatever. Like, this is just like a Netflix baby thing.
No one cares about that. I'm sorry, but...
No, but I think that the pride for the country of Brazil...
But Brazilians have pride about this film, but, why would anyone else care?
I think it has resonated that, Brazil really likes this movie. Giving the award to Brazil, it's kind of like a good... It's a good place for it.
I am going to, for the sake of argument, disregard that Emilia Perez has been hurt by controversy and just look at I'm Still Here and say, yeah, people got really passionate about that film. It's been widely seen recently within the Hollywood bubble. I'm sure many are talking about how this is like a hidden gem. And it was a very exciting nomination, very unexpected. So this could give I'm Still Here the edge. I think it's really close. None of the other films really have a chance. So if you think about the entire awards voting body, They've all seen I'm Still Here and Amelia Perez. Amelia Perez has more like dissenters, like more, maybe like 25% or 20% of the Academy Awards overall is like, I don't like that movie. It's towards the bottom of their list. Like, those are obviously going to I'm Still Here. It's not like they're splitting between multiple movies. Even if 30% of people feel like passionately in love with Amelia Perez, that would still leave like the remainder of people. They would have to at least have like some pretty strong feelings for it. But having this alternative, they could just say like, well, I don't think that film was like worth the hype. I'll go with this one. And so like it really could lump a lot of the people who just feel like even lukewarm about Amelia Perez and the people who don't like it together, and they could unite and they could take it down. Some people might have said, hey, this should have won the BAFTA, right? If this was going to win the Academy Award, like why wouldn't it have had time to catch up to the BAFTAs?
Because they didn't see the damn movie enough to put it on the long list for anything.
Right, but maybe like they followed suit and were like, oh well, maybe I'll give that a watch.
No, I don't think that they were as on it.
I agree. Like, just some people say, oh, the BAFTA had the opportunity.
I don't think BAFTA was ever going to go for I'm Still Here. I actually do think that it's the controversy that has pushed me over the edge.
Okay.
Even with I'm Still Here surging, I think that if there were no controversy, Amelia Perez, with the 13 nominations, might be a little closer to the winning Best Picture conversation. I think it really has made people back off a bit, though.
Definitely the controversy hurts it in Best Actress, where like nobody will vote for Carla Sofia Gascon because of like her as a person and her beliefs. I think people can separate like the movie and other categories from that.
The tweets kind of gave people permission to go, oh, and also like, did you know this movie like sucks as representation for everybody in it? And
so it's probably like gathered negative energy and comments towards this controversy that everybody I think has heard of.
I just think I'm Still Here feels better to vote for, and even the anonymous ballots and also people who claim to be talking to voters are making it sound like this is where it's going.
How are the anonymous ballots? I'm actually curious.
It's like way out front for I'm Still Here right now in this category.
Yeah, I mean, this is anecdotal, so I don't like love it as a justification, but I did see somebody who like put Amelia Perez at the number 1 for best film and then put I'm Still Here at number 1.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. It feels like the category for it. At this point, I would be a little shocked if Amelia Perez won.
It would suck. Like, it would feel really bad because I'm Still Here is supposed to win at this point, I think.
It's not even my favorite movie in the category, and I think I would still vote for it because I like want to see that happen for it.
I would probably do it just on the basis that like, Netflix pushed the fuck out of Amelia Perez and like somehow made that a 13 nomination film, and I kind of resent that. And I also
feels good to vote for the underdog, doesn't it?
There are some categories where I can look and say that happened. Like Maestro having controversy, like it was weird, it didn't resonate with me, but the fact that it lost makeup to Poor Things was kind of nuts. Any other year I think that would have won, but people got tired of like giving biopics makeup. Also Zone of Interest feeling more like groundbreaking in the sound category, beating Oppenheimer. I do think there's some support in like how a smaller movie can spoil like the clearly bigger contender.
We can talk about The Wild Robot v. Flow.
Yeah.
It kind of goes that way as well. I mean, The Wild Robot is, the big DreamWorks animation film, and then Flow is like a little indie international film, and they both have a lot of passion.
Flow is a film that people get passionate about. It won the Golden Globe.
They were all international, though.
Yeah, and then BAFTA didn't give us any clues because they went with their home turf, Wallace and Gromit.
I mean, honestly, though, people say that it made Flow look weak to not win BAFTA, but I think you almost have to say that we just don't know the results. We don't know what the Flow v. Wild Robot result is there. Like, look, what if you found out that Flow would have won BAFTA or was number 2? What if you found that out? Would you predict it? Would you go for it?
To say Flow should have won the BAFTA is to underestimate Wallace and Gromit. And you don't want to underestimate that because it's part of their national identity. And I honestly feel like I could see BAFTA voters voting for Wallace and Gromit at BAFTA, and then for their Academy Awards ballot switching to something else.
I think we're a little traumatized from last year. Spider-Verse went up against Boy and the Heron and it lost. But there were 2 factors on both sides that I think contributed to this result. Boy and the Heron, that's Miyazaki, man. An international film winning that category, only Miyazaki can do that. And he's such a name. He's such a well-respected person in the industry. Like, so many fans. So beloved.
Yeah.
And that doesn't compare to Flow in this way.
And then Spider-Verse was a sequel.
It was a sequel.
And we already gave them an award.
The only time sequel has won this category is the Toy Story films. If Flow wins, it's different. That's like if Flea beat Encanto. Encanto had 3 nominations. Flea had 3 as well. And like Flow, it has like the international and animated award. But The Wild Robot's not a sequel. The director of the film is very well respected in the industry, and he hasn't had a big win in this category. And it's really, really beloved. People fucking love The Wild Robot. Yeah. It has 3 nominations in sound and score. Those are really big nominations for an animated film to get. If you have a sound nomination as an animated film, you're not going to lose animated feature. It happened like the first year of the Oscars with Monsters, Inc. And Shrek didn't have a sound nomination. But Monsters, Inc. did.
Yeah. The sound nomination is very, very big.
It's big.
But I also want to point out, Flow beat All We Imagine Is Light in the Indie Spirit International category.
It's big.
That's like crazy. I mean, I think that indicates a surge of passion for the movie.
Oh, there's definitely a lot of passion.
And, you know, it getting into international was actually very unexpected. There also seems to be some awareness around the fact that that is a very low budget movie. I think it's like $3.5 million to make that. Whereas the average animated film, like The Wild Robot, has to be like at least 50 million. That's like the bare
that's
minimum.
like over 100 million.
And that one's probably like 100 or more. There is a David and Goliath microcosm here as well.
Yeah, but The Wild Robot isn't like a big bad.
No, it's not a big bad, but it does feel kind of Disney.
Gentle movie.
It does feel kind of Disney, and it also feels a little bit kids.
But it's also not Disney, it's DreamWorks. DreamWorks doesn't win a lot here.
It also feels a little bit kids. And
so
DreamWorks is still a big animation
What's wrong with
studio.
it feeling like it's for kids? Every movie that wins the animated feature at the Oscars for kids.
No.
Yeah.
Boy and the Heron's fucking not for kids at all.
Okay, fine. That's like the one. The history of this category, aside from like last year, is that they go with the big American blockbuster.
Yeah, well, I remember when Toy Story 4 was facing off against Klaus. Missing Link won the Golden Globe, and Klaus won the BAFTA. It seemed like there could be a spoiler, and that Toy Story 4 was just kind of on the decline.
There you go, Missing Link winning the Golden Globe. Big deal. Like, a lone Golden Globe win? That's what we're going to do here. I mean, the Annie and the PGA and the Critics' Choice all went with Wild Robot.
But I think there's no doubt that Flow has more passion than, like, those runner-ups.
I can kind of like see it in my head. I can just kind of imagine them being like announcing Flow and being like, "Oh, fuck!"
No,
like,
me too.
God, damn,
I'm very compelled by that. I have a feeling that Flow is gonna win.
What? I'm not predicting that shit. I'm predicting Wild Robot.
This to me is such a close category. It
feels 50-50. But Flow doesn't have the evidence.
The evidence.
It won the International Critics Group Body the Golden Globes Award. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, but
Wild Robot has a sound and a score nomination, which like Pinocchio and Spider-Verse and Boy and the Heron couldn't even do that.
Well, what happened at the Annies? I mean, I think how many categories was Flow nominated for?
Wild Robot won a bunch of shit. Flow was not one independent feature. It was nominated for Best Direction, which Wild Robot beat it in Best Direction. And Flow won writing, but Wild Robot was not nominated for writing. Wild Robot won like 7 awards at the Annies, all right?
But don't you think it's close?
Yeah. But I think there's one that's on top.
What if I go with my feelings?
Then if your feelings are wrong, you'll have to hate yourself.
What do the anonymous ballots say? This is where, like, I'm going to cheat. The anonymous ballots would say Flow, and then it would still be the Wild Robot.
The anonymous ballots have Flow at 9 and Wild Robot at 5. But again, they have Nickel Boys winning Adapted Screenplay, so...
Just what do you think about the fact that Flow beat All We Imagine Is Light at the Indie Spirit International?
All We Imagine Is Light is not nominated for animated feature.
Bro, that's fucked though. That's crazy. I think people could perceive this as a David and Goliath thing. Well, I mean, Flow has some money. Like, they've probably had a decent campaign.
Probably nothing like the Wild Robot's campaign, dude.
The Wild Robot did send you a lot of merch.
Oh, yeah. People love that movie. There's nothing wrong with it. It's on the IMDb Top 250. It is crazy how much of a challenger Flow has become, though. I am surprised by it.
Yeah. I guess I'll stick with the Wild Robot. I reserve the right to change my prediction last minute, and you will see that reflected in the Award Expert app, which you can make your final Oscar predictions on. And it is free, so definitely, throw your hat in the ring. Let's try to see where you land on that leaderboard. All right, so documentary feature. This is a really tough one. The BAFTAs did Superman. The Oscars didn't nominate Superman. The BAFTAs could have done No Other Land. They did not. I think No Other Land is obviously like from this example, but just in general, it's no runaway frontrunner. Like, it's missed like the PGA documentary nominations, but again, that's because it doesn't have a distributor. Yeah. It's also because there's bias against the film for being on the side of Palestine, and we know that many people are not sympathetic in Hollywood to what's going on in Palestine, and you at least have to be sympathetic enough to watch the film. Even if a giant cohort of the Academy is not sympathetic, there's no like second place obvious film to get behind as an alternate.
Well, people think that the second place film is Porcelain War. Their main evidence, though, is that it won a DGA. And people point to that because it's the only big guild award winner that's even nominated at the Oscars.
It's also nominated for PGA.
Yeah.
And it's the only film from this list that's nominated from PGA.
No Other Land, the only award it lost, like, at all, was the BAFTA. And it lost to Superman, which Superman would have won if it was nominated.
Like, wait, you think Superman would win the Oscar?
Yes, of course, everyone knows that.
Oh, that's so funny.
Everyone knows that. I don't see the evidence that Porcelain War has all this buzz and it's super strong. I mean, the reviews on it, like the Letterboxd, it's not as good as the other documentaries that are nominated. I just don't see how it's like the movie that has all the passion. Even if you don't want to vote for No Other Land or you don't see it, that doesn't necessarily mean that all the votes are going to pile onto one other film. And then it's people who have seen it and who support Palestine versus people who don't. Like, the stack isn't actually going to work that way. Jonathan Glazer's speech and the response to it showed that there are a lot of people in Hollywood who are probably Zionist, and maybe those people don't want to watch No Other Land. But then there was a response to that, like, letter that everybody signed with even more signatures saying, like, whoa, like, no, we do support Jonathan Glazer's speech. So even if it's 50%,
I think there's a lot of people who are quiet about their support for Palestine. But, you know, the way the industry works, like, you can't really be loud about it. So it's kind of like no one really knows what the breakdown would be.
But if it's 50%, which I think is probably more close to true, then you have a lot of those votes probably going to No Other Land, because people who have actually watched all the films, they like No Other Land.
Yeah. I think if you've seen No Other Land, it's a film that you absolutely want to vote for because you want to make a statement. You want to say, like, this is wrong. How could we be doing this? More people should see this film. More people should be aware of what's happening. And when you watch No Other Land, you're like, you know, unless you're really, like, deep into these issues, you're like, I didn't know that was happening. And it's not even about Gaza, so it kind of, like, avoids the most hot button, like, contemporary issue surrounding Israel and Palestine's relationship. It's not even covering the most egregious aspect, but it's covering one aspect of, like, the rural West Bank that is so objectively wrong and, like, disturbing and disgusting. Even if you were kind of in the middle on this issue, you would come away from the film being like, well, obviously that was bad. Obviously this is, you know, an issue we should stand behind. I would say if this doesn't win, it's a strong anti-statement. It would actually kind of surprise me that, like, that many people are against it.
But again, like, if Will and Harper was nominated, I would just not be surprised that wins.
Right. If there was an alternate.
Yeah. If there was an alternate that's, like, palatable and feel good, but all these other films, like, you know, the doc branch goes for, like, you know, more challenging documentaries. And again, I think Porcelain War has, like, the least hyped reviews out of them. Yes, it represents, like, Ukraine, but from what I gather, it's not like Navalny and Mariupol where it's like, it feels like I am, like, scathing Russia when I give this movie an award. I just think that No Other Land will gather such a significant chunk of the votes out of people who actually do see it.
Yeah.
That it will overcome those who don't. Even on the anonymous ballots, I'll show you, and I know we shouldn't use this for evidence, but No Other Land has 6. And Coup d'etat is 3, and Sugarcane is 2, and Porcelain War is 2. Like, again, that is what I think makes sense to me. The DGA win alone is just like a guild win that you can point to, but it didn't even beat No Other Land there. No Other Land doesn't lose awards, pretty much. Except for the BAFTA. It won the Indie Spirit, too, which is a good award to win.
The problem is with Porcelain War, I see a lot of people feeling meh about it, or like they weren't that invested, they didn't care that much. So there's no other powerhouse documentary here that feels political, like, to rival No Other Land. So I'm gonna go with No Other Land, and I do expect that it's gonna win. Like, even though I have a reservation here, I just don't feel like there's a strong number 2.
I'm very worried about No Other Land, but like you, my main reason is lack of believing in the number 2. And that is all the predictions for the Oscars, except for the shorts, which we will do in another video, because we also want to talk about, you know, our opinions on them because we've seen them.
Looking at Award Expert, seeing what the community is doing,
we're in line with
I think it's kind of interesting to point out, like, we are in line with what the community thinks for every single category except for Best Actress. I don't know if that's safe or not. I don't know if we're going to have a year where like, it's kind of predictable. I could easily see this being a year where it's easy to get over 80%. It could be pretty straightforward, with the exception of a couple categories, like animated, with actress,
sound,
editing, sound, sort of, or the short films. The short films are really important here because
I don't think Gold Derby has them all right. So again, make your predictions on Award Expert. Don't forget to do that before the Academy Awards happen. And if you like this channel, you can support it on memberships. I just did a video on the anonymous ballots. You know, you may say, oh, why would I do memberships when the season, award season's ending? Well, there'll be trailer reactions and movie news for upcoming Oscar films we might cover. And also, I'm thinking about doing some bite-sized retrospective content where I maybe go, oh, like the supporting actor category this year was really interesting and here's why. So you can sign up for that. $2 month, many video month. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. What category are you the most panicked about?